Welcome to Tech Talent Today, where IT leaders share their tough challenges, creative solutions, and latest insights. You'll discover fresh ideas and inspiration here with your host, IT staffing veteran and president of Claremont Technologies, Jody Kulik-Mayer. And now, here's Jody.
Today, I am celebrating 2 years of the Tech Talent Today podcast. We've had another year of wonderful, interesting, and insightful guests. I'm so grateful they spoke with me to share their stories. I'm here with Bonnie Brill again to take a look back on the past year to discuss some of the things that resonated with you and us. I feel like it was just yesterday that we were talking about the first year of Tech Talent Today, and now it's the summer again, and we're already at the end of year 2.
I can't believe it. It does feel like yesterday, and I have to say that this season did not disappoint. Not only did we have all of, again, terrific life lessons and everybody's personal stories, it had a little bit of everything, including an Instagram dog and someone who makes their own wine labels. So I think there was a little bit of everything this year.
That's so true. Our guests are so interesting, and they're so generous to share their insights and experience and time.
I couldn't agree more. And lots of brilliance and wisdom, as I always mention, in all of these podcasts.
Well, I'd want to start off with Rob Diamond. I love his story, right? It's sort of like war games, right?
We're dating ourselves, yes.
Right. Right. When he got his job at Bell Labs, that he was like an intern there. They weren't having enough time for him, so he hacks in with like the old school modem that you like has a dial-up modem from back in the day.
Definitely
And
like war games.
They catch him, and instead of prosecuting him, they decide that they're going to hire him.
Brilliant. I mean, who better to hire than someone who has already hacked your system, especially in that role? I always thought that would have been a better ending if they offered the Matthew Broderick character an actual spot at the Defense Department to help them.
Right.
You know, but
Instead
it also
of
reminded me of that security commercial they had years ago, where for this firm they said they hired like ex-criminals to sort of check out their security systems so they could see where the vulnerabilities lie. So actually, it's a hilarious story with Rob Diamond, but also a brilliant move by that company.
Right. Get the people with the great skills on your side, protecting your company.
Exactly right.
And also this year, I think to just change the subject a little bit, there's been a lot of discussion on going back to the office.
Yes.
Right?
That is so true. I think you're probably talking about Caroline Frith, talking about going back into the office and what the sweet spot is for, the hybrid. Is it, 1 day a week in the office? Is it 4 days? And I believe they actually found the sweet spot that when they did the study, that it was 3 days, 2 to 3 days in the office per week was the sweet spot where the happiness was the best. I think initially they said 3. I would have thought more like 2, but maybe that's just a personal opinion.
That's true. Well, let's listen to Caroline's clip and see what she had to say about it.
Okay, great.
What do you think like the hybrid workplace looks like?
Yeah, I think each company obviously has super different policies and are just getting started on this journey. The way I've seen it done well, my time at Cushman, we had workplace consultants that would go in and interview staff and, find out how many days, if at all, people want to return to the office. There's an experience per square foot team that spends a ton of time at Cushman doing research like this. And they basically found that, happiness peaks around 3 days in the office. So people need flexibility with what time they can come in. They want to make sure that other people are going to be in the office, that they're not coming in to an empty office, and that people they are either friends with or work closely with are also going to be in the office. So the experience per square foot survey found people's happiness starts to decline rapidly after 3 days a week being in the office. But 3 days, you're happier than only coming in 1 day. So 2 to 3 days a week having people come in seems to be the sweet spot.
So Caroline says 3 days.
3 days, right. I know. I thought that was close, but for me personally, I think it would have been more 2. Because the truth is, you do want to still sort of bond with the people at the office. Sometimes it gets a little lonely at home, even though initially it sounded great to be working completely remote. I think too, you do need to sort of have a little camaraderie with some of the group in the office. It's a good thing.
It's true. It's interesting, though, what I'm seeing while recruiting. Remote does seem like a lot of people's first choice, fully remote, and hybrid is second. I don't think anyone's telling me they want to be 5 days in the office.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get too many people who want, unless they maybe really hate their home life.
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and I'm finding that if somebody has a fully remote job and I'm calling them with something hybrid, whereas it might be a better salary or better career progression, they're still not going for it. That there's a real pull when it comes to the remote.
Right. So companies who are going to insist on days in the office may be at a disadvantage.
Right. Well, they should call Maryanne
Yes,
from the
yes.
the Office is Dead.
I love the name of that book. Right. The Office is Dead. Now what? Like, that's just a fantastic name.
Right. Because she's been working with leaders to also find like what is the sweet spot to, I guess, get people to come in the office and give them a reason for coming into the office.
Right. I remember that she said, which was interesting, because what do you mean the office is dead? I mean, the office is still really there, but the expectations have changed. And she talked about being able for the supervisors and managers to be able to trust the people the way they did during COVID in times where it was remote. And, they need to still have that trust in their employees. And there's some of the companies are really struggling with that.
Right. I agree. And I also think maybe it could be like trust, but it could also be like the way people are used to managing, right? She calls it, right. Managing by walking around.
That's right. Exactly. That's true. And I liked also that she said that companies that were not doing either or solutions, they were the ones that were missing out. You had to have, I thought she said but it was a something and solution. It's evading me right now. But the ones that gave more options were doing better than the ones that just basically like my way or the highway. So I thought she made a great point about that.
I agree. She also said to like give like a reason as to like why it's important to come to the office, not just to sit next to somebody who's going to be on their Zoom calls.
Right. She made so many good points.
That's true. Right. And her book it's Maryanne Spatola. The Office is Dead. Now what? In case.
Yes. So if anybody wants to get it, maybe we can link that below or link it so people can order it if they're interested.
Yes. Well, I'll put it in the links. So also we spoke this year to Curt Smith, who is one of my first clients in the business from like when I am fresh out of college. So I really appreciated him speaking with me because I was looking on LinkedIn and I see him like hiking the Appalachian Trail. So
like I said, our guests are extremely interesting and diverse in their talents.
Right. And he promised me when he got off the trail, he would come speak on Tech Talent Today, and he did. And he was doing it for, a great cause, Trekking For Trevor. His son who has special needs, and this raises money for them. And he really met like a lot of interesting people on the trail and other professionals who were taking time off from work. There's one story that I know you like about, why don't you tell it about
I love
the woman
the
he found on the trail. Yeah.
Yes. So we always say, like, what kind of advice would you give, like, say, a 20-something-year-old who's starting out, what should they do? And he talks about being able to find your passion and do that. So he was speaking with a young lady on the trail, and she mentioned something to the effect of like, she just doesn't want to sit behind a desk all day. And he said to her, well, like, you're a computer scientist, which I thought was hilarious. But also that you could try to find whatever your passion is and somehow combine that with the computer science and work it like that. But it really, made me laugh that she doesn't want to sit behind a desk all day. But yet she's a computer scientist. So I thought that was a great story by Curt.
It's true. And I love that he's giving career advice on the trail.
Exactly.
Right? He's always such a giver because he has so much great experience about that. I also really enjoyed my talk with Amy Lackey.
Oh, yes, that is true. In fact, she talks a lot about relationship building. I don't know if a lot of your listeners know, but we put up on LinkedIn some short clips of a lot of the guests with, like I would say, a little bit of wisdom. And I keep them on my phone because they're really good to reference. So I'm just going to read a little bit of Amy Lackey's. She wrote, or she said, so many times employees put their head in the sand. They say, if I do a really good job, I'm going to progress. And that is the bottom line. You have to do a good job. However, sometimes it's about having that person that's going to help you because either A, they know the company better, or B, they're the decision makers. And I think she makes such a good point, and I don't want to make it too long, but she basically goes on to say that go to your HR department, you know, try to build relationships, and that way, is another way you're going to do better within the company, besides just doing a good job, which is still important.
Right. You have to do a good job, but it always helps with relationships to introduce you to other people or give you a different perspective on how to navigate within your career. So it's really a good point. She also talked about making a big company small.
Right.
Because, right, some companies are so large, you could really feel lost in there and say, like, right, how am I going to progress at this large company? But, right, the core of it is relationships, and to, I guess, plant the seed of your relationship. You can't just come to somebody and say, like, how am I going to get
right,
like a promotion?
Right. What are you going to do for me? Tell me all the right, exactly. Again, always back to relationship building. Right. Sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know. Isn't that always a common theme in a lot of areas of our life?
Yes, definitely.
So, and
definitely.
building a relationship. So that was a very interesting podcast as well.
Right, right. And in one of our more recent podcasts with Kirk Brote, I really enjoyed because he is an expert in user experience. And I love what he said about finding out, like how to find out what the users want. Why don't you share his wisdom in his quote?
Definitely. Yes, I love this one too. So he said, don't ask them what they need. Let them tell you a story about their experience. And as you gather those stories, you start to hear the common points across those stories. And people always bring up this point of the process that's been really problematic and they don't like it. When enough people tell you that's what the truth is, and then accept it. And that's such a good point. Some people just don't want to listen. They think it's something else. But when you talk to a bunch of people, you can really get a feel of what the problem is. And like I said, accept it. That's the problem,
Yeah. I know. I love that. I love the part that he says, accept it. Because, right, maybe you don't want that to be the problem.
Right. You're hoping that it's not the problem, but it's the problem. I also love that he mentioned that sometimes companies are working on a solution to something that it turns out when speaking to people is not even a problem. I remember, I think it was Judge Marilyn who said on TV that I'm itching here and you're scratching me here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is where the problem lies and they're, working on something else. So that always reminded me of that whenever I hear of Kirk's podcast.
Right, right. And I love that Kirk comes from such a creative and interesting family. Like his daughter is a makeup artist, like on sets for movies. So that's really amazing. And his wife wrote a book, Kirsty Brote, Love Lost on Cloud 9. So
what a talented family.
I know. I love it and love like promoting them and their family because it's wonderful. Like they share with us and, we like to help them too.
I love their story. Like I said, stories too. Because you even get to know everybody, like writing books and makeup artists.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. One very popular podcast that a lot of people talk to me about is Dave Zweier's Is the PMO Becoming Obsolete?
Oh, right.
This one, maybe it's the title, but it definitely got a big response and a lot of people talking to me. And from that podcast, actually, Pat Rasile wanted to come on and, say what he has to say about the PMO. But let me play Dave's clip from what he said on that podcast.
Don't ever think that you can't become a PM just because you've been a software developer for a bunch of years or that you've been on the business side. It's really a discipline that lends itself to someone who has ambition and that entrepreneurial spirit that we talked about. But I just think it's a great career path that's maybe some people don't consider.
He was talking about like project management, that people don't necessarily consider that. They think that maybe if they're like a software developer, they can't do that. And he's saying a lot of like entrepreneurial skills translate well to that one.
Right, right. And I sort of remember too that within that clip that you have to be like flexible as things change. Things are changing maybe in the project management space and you have to be flexible. It always reminded me of that popular book, I think it was Who Moved My Cheese, where you have to notice when things are changing and start flowing with them and again, accept that as the truth. Not deny that it's happening. Again, a common theme.
It's true. Because I remember asking him saying, like, why would anybody think the PMO is becoming obsolete? And he said with moving from waterfall to agile, there was not a specific role called project manager.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, right, as you said, like moving with the cheese.
Yes.
But I feel like maybe project management offices are evolving to be more strategic and more partners with the business as opposed to just, doing the budgets and moving the project plan along. They really get a wide view of what's happening in the organization.
Right. Obviously, we were not alone, as that was an extremely popular podcast. That a lot of people felt the same way and had a lot to say about it, as you had, mentioned with Pat Rasile. So it's true.
It's true. It's true. And like Dave also talks about the importance of soft skills in project management. And Mark Marshalek also talks about in his podcast curiosity as a soft skill. Like when he's looking for people for his team, that he wants people who are curious.
Right. I remember he mentioned something that even if you don't have all of the skills, if you have curiosity, he's willing to hire you because you'll ask the right questions, you'll figure things out, and you'll have the desire to learn it. So I remember him mentioning that, and I thought that was a good point. It sort of reminded me of last year. I remember a lot of managers were mentioning that they liked, I'm going to call it the soft skill of being comfortable in uncertainty. So that was, I remember so it's not just always, once again, about the skill itself and just doing the good job. There's these soft skills that you also sort of have to be, I don't know if it's like something you can sort of develop, but something that a lot of the managers look for are not just the like specific skills per se.
Right, not just the technical skills.
That's right. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Maybe
that's
like the whole person, and they're talking about bringing like your authentic self to work.
As long as your authentic self is good.
Right. I guess they said there's different versions of your authentic self because maybe how you would be at home would not be quite the same as you'd be in the office.
They might throw you out. So yes, your good authentic self.
Right. Though I think with work from home, those two things sort of meshed, right? Your home self and your work self. So
that's a good point. That's a
so
very
interesting.
Good point.
So
yes,
I know we've mentioned Pat Rasile a couple of times, and in his podcast, what really struck me, I know, and you and other people, was his statement on criticism versus critical thinking. I want to play his clip because that was really good. Hang on.
I would say criticism thinking is the inverse of health. So if we think about high performing, we want employees to exercise a higher level of critical thinking, using fact to drive the questioning and analysis, right, to solve problems. Human nature, some people go straight to the blame game, directed at one person, driven by emotion, and that just causes churn, and it actually diverts from the real issue at hand. Someone recently talked about the spotlight and the floodlight. The criticism thinking takes the spotlight and directs it at a person and blames them. The floodlight brings it to the situation. How did we get here to begin with? And so we want, from a health perspective, we want people to stay away from criticism thinking and really exercise critical thinking, looking holistically what the root cause is, and to use that to problem solve and drive better performance.
I love that. We put that up as a short on our YouTube channel, and I think got over like 250 views. Yeah, people really like that.
Because don't
But,
we
you know,
just know? Yeah, go ahead.
you go. People love to point fingers. I think that's maybe human nature.
Yes, right. The spotlight. They want to put it on, right, and blame something specific. So I think everybody can relate to that.
Right.
Where it's important to do the floodlight and get the overall picture instead of just blaming. The blame game, as he says.
Right. The root cause of the problem.
Yes.
And I guess there's always like a lot of different personalities, and
that's right.
Sometimes work is a challenge to like work with all those different personalities.
That's so true. You're right. That's why you need to just be in the office like 2 to 3 days a week.
That's right.
As Caroline said, just 2 to 3 was with the best happiness peaked.
Right. And yeah, I forget what I was going to say, but yes.
That's a good point. Don't be critical. Yes, don't do critical thinking. I mean, criticism thinking, do critical thinking. Don't do criticism thinking, do critical thinking.
And I think that's also why the soft skills are so important, right?
Yes, that's true.
For that reason alone.
Good point. And especially when you have to work with someone directly every day.
Right.
Good point.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'd also like to talk about Joe Vellaiparambil. He was talking about like when an office is really, truly data driven.
Yes, I remember when everybody has access to the data and then make decisions on it and based on that. And data's been such a big topic that I thought that was like a very interesting point. And then I remember saying you could truly call yourself data driven at that point. I thought that was just interesting. I also thought it was interesting. Did he like make his own wine with his own labels? I mean, like I said, everyone has an interesting outside story as well.
Right, it's true. Yes, we'll post a picture of his wine.
Yes,
and the labels. I also think that companies are always like striving to be truly data driven.
Yes,
like, I'm wondering if they're ever really like there, or it's just always a work in progress.
Right, I know what you're saying. Always evolving.
Yes.
Always evolving. I'm just wondering, too, did we not mention, I'm like wondering, where was Bella the dog, the Instagram dog? That was another interest. Like, I don't remember talking about that, and I think it should be addressed. Who just refresh my memory.
You're so right. Mark Marshalek.
Yes, thank you. I said, where's Bella the dog? Tell about Bella. I think that's a good, like, human interest story.
Right. Mark said that during the pandemic, his kids started posting pictures of their dog, Bella, on Instagram. And I don't remember how many followers Bella has, but I think Bella has more likes and followers than Tech Talent Today.
I think you need to get Bella on the show, and maybe it'll help,
Right, maybe if I put the link in the show notes.
That's right.
Bella will drive traffic to us.
Good idea.
Right.
Everyone's going to have to check the notes. We're going to have Bella and Trekking for Trevor and the book.
Right.
That was
The Office is Dead.
The Office is Dead. Kirk Brote's wife's book. There's like a lot of talent within your guests and their families.
It's wonderful. It really is. Back to data.
Yes.
We also spoke with Heather Fitzgerald.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Was using data storytelling to drive decision making. And I love how she said that she called it the last mile. But she was saying that the last mile is like not the last thing you should do, and it's gonna like ever evolving.
Right. So it's really never the last mile.
Right.
Right. So it's always, I guess, always progressing.
Right.
It's never the end of the story. So there is no real last mile almost. I think it was
that's true.
A good point.
Right. Making like I guess business decisions from the data, right?
Right.
And finding the person to interpret the data to help make those business decisions. It's ever evolving.
So true. So true.
Well, I think the last mile is the perfect place to wrap up our podcast.
It's the last person we're going to discuss today, right?
Right.
But our podcast is ever evolving, and I'm sure more guests are coming down the pike.
That's true. We've already have a great start to season 3, which will be coming out next month with Jim O'Hagan, career coach. Ignite your confidence and land your dream job. Jim has a lot of great tips.
I got a chance to listen to that podcast, and it was fantastic. Jim brings up so many good points, and he really helps guide you on how to, best interview practices and getting a job, and terrific advice how to answer some of those questions, like the "tell me about yourself" question. Everybody hates that question.
That question.
So it's a really good listen. So as there seems to be a lot of good guests in the pipeline coming up for this year.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for reminiscing with me through year 2. It was fun to remember everything that happened.
It really is. I can't wait to hopefully be back for year 3. If you'll invite me back, we could discuss year 3.
Right. All right.
Thanks for listening to Tech
Thanks,
Talent
Jody. I
Today,
appreciate it.
brought to you by Clearmont Technologies IT Staffing and Search. You can find out more at clearmonttech.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share. See you next time.